work this out, get the stream going, because we got a lot of hands to review from Sunday Funday. It was a good stream. If you didn't see it, I suggest you put it up. No spoilers, but it was a hell of a sun run while it lasted. Honestly, I'll talk about it because who cares? I ended up running really good, excessively good. But looking back on the hands, it was really just all my good hands holding. Like all my ace kings holding versus ace queen when we raced, and winning races, with the ace queen versus pocket jacks and stuff like that. So it wasn't crazy, but it was definitely a run. And there have been a few of these. You get one of these every couple months. And it was at that point where in a few tournaments I was like, well, barring crazy coolers, if you give me this many chips in a tournament at this point, I should come in the top 3. And I had that feeling in 2 tournaments yesterday, and got coolered out like a motherfucker in one of them. And the other one, the sun run switch kind of just shut off, and I went dead. And what are you gonna do? I wouldn't take back anything I did. It was a great capper that the last hand, which you'll see us review, because I want to run the numbers on it, was a fun one. But whatever. Let's get into this. Queen 7 of diamonds. We see a raise very early in the tournament and very early in the day, so we just go ahead and defend. Flop comes off ace 4-10. Not great for us. Player decides to check back. That's interesting. An ace hits the turn, and now we just go ahead and bet small. Think about it. If you had a rag ace here, what would you do? Probably this. He decides to call, take 1 card off, and I decide to go ahead and go for the bluff on the river, and this kind of works. Typically in this scenario, you're up against hands like pocket pairs that kind of fall in between here, so jacks, queens, possibly kings, I guess, 9s, also. Because there's really not a lot to be afraid of other than the ace, and all we have to do is convince our opponent that we have the ace. We do that, he folds the jacks or whatever, and we win a nice little pot early on. 4-6 offsuit. See a raise and a raise and a call and a call. So we decide to go ahead and defend. Again, very early in the tournament day. I have 80 blinds, so might as well, and considering it only cost me 1.5 to win what was already out there, plus the expected call on the big blind, it's kind of 8-1 crazy, or 7-1 crazy, so it's a pretty good call. Flop a gut shot. Interesting hand. It goes check to the original raiser, and he bets 1/3 pot. Now, here's the thing. If it had checked to the cutoff or the button on this flop, and they had bet 1/3 pot, then I would be very willing to give them credit for a big hand. A set, something like that. Oh. But when the original raiser c-bets 1/3 pot, if you have queens here, you are in a 4-way pot. Are you going to bet this small? No. You're going to bet to protect your hand, and you're going to go for value. So you want it to be a scenario where somebody has a jack, and you also want it to be a scenario where somebody with a shitty draw like mine won't call you. That being said, he made a small bet here, which to me just looks like absolute nothing. So I decided to go ahead and call. The turn comes off a king, usually better for his range than mine. But for some reason, I don't know why, I just didn't feel like he had it. When he bets a 3rd pot on the turn now, it's like, okay, you're representing, at this point, you're representing exactly a set. And since you opened pre-flop, I got to imagine you only have a set of jacks. Because you're not betting that small with a pair of kings on the flop, turning a king, and then taking your bet down. So you're representing a range that's far too narrow. Only a set of jacks. That's all you're representing. And when the possible hands that you can be representing as the bluffer are cut to 1 combination of cards, you really need to abandon that bluff, because it's not going to work off enough. 1, because you have to be up against a player who's good enough to make that read, and 2, you have to be up against a player who's bad enough to listen to that read, because it's so specific. You know, most of us nowadays, we think in terms of range, not hands. So this is just a bad bluff. So I decided to go ahead and raise, and I raised small. And the only real reason I'm raising small is so I can leverage a larger bet on the river. You don't need to make this, 18 to go here. I want to make it look like I'm trying not to lose the fish. So I just doubled his bet plus a blind and a half. And that's enough. You know what I'm saying? If I have two pair, or if I have a set of fives or deuces, it makes a lot of sense. King, queen can do this. I mean, it should do this, but it doesn't often enough. But yeah, absolutely a set can do this here. He decides to make what I call the E call, the embarrassment call. And the river comes off a queen. Not a great card for me because, like I said, all those hands have now tripped up. And there is a case to be made for king, queen playing this way. Betting small on the flop, taking a shot, and then two pair. I decided to go ahead and represent the set with the large bet on the river. This is what I would do with a set of fives or deuces. But I can also have every two pair. And unless he has exactly king, queen, it's very hard for him to make this call. Honestly, it's pretty hard to make this call even with aces. I mean, I know we're early in the tournament, and this was the Boski, which also kind of fit into my, I believe it was the Boski, yeah. This kind of fit into my manner of why I did it. The Boski plays a little tighter. Even on Sundays, it plays kind of tight. I don't know if it's the nature of the structure of the tournament. I don't know if it's the fact that Boski himself plays a little tighter. I don't know. But I've noticed at this tournament, there's a few tournaments that play certain dynamics. This one plays pretty tight. It's a low buy-in with a long, slow structure. That kind of makes sense. You know, the players would want to have time to make a hand and play tighter. So, moves like this can be very successful, and as you see, it was. So we just basically represented what he was trying to do with what we were doing. And I do believe, I mean, obviously we were beat, but I do believe this player had a pair and just played it, poorly. Oh, why did that happen? Okay. So pocket fours. I make it 2.5. Player calls, I flop a 4. I bet the small standard continuation bet. I could have bet bigger, but honestly, there's only 2 of us, even on this draw heavy board. If there was even one other caller, I would have bet bigger because of the draws. Turn comes off, we make the full house. Now the move is to try to get in as much money as possible. I'm basically pot building at this point. You can see this is a under half pot bet. Now I'm trying to allow the draw to come in and still build the pot for a good-sized river bet so that if he makes a flush, he can check raise me and we can get all the money in. 5 on the river doesn't help much. I decide to go for a standard value bet here of 2/3 pot. It looks a little fishy if you're sitting here with a queen. But at the same time, I think this is a good example of how you get 3 streets of value, and it's all leading up towards this larger river bet. Because now this river bet is 14 blinds instead of it being somewhere around 9 blinds, which would have been the standard play. So I think the pot building really worked well here, and the player called and did have king, queen. And we were able to pick up a nice 25 big blind pot in a scenario where I really don't feel like this opponent was comfortable. And obviously he plays very few hands, plays them very aggressively. So I don't think he was very comfortable in this hand, and we may have found like the inflection point between where he would fold and then just backed it off just a little. So I like the bet sizing on that hand. 4-9. Fucking 4-9. I had 4-9 yesterday. Like, specifically, I must have had this hand 10 times. I'm going to check it in Poker Tracker after this. I had 4-9 so many times. I don't know why. But it just happened. Like, when my cards went dead, it seemed like every other hand was 4-9. So we see a min open. We decide to go ahead and call it. We are short stacked here, which allows me for a lot of maneuvering versus another short stack. It goes check, check. Obviously, this flop helps nobody. This jack's pretty good for me, so I decide to go ahead and bet at it. Player calls, and we make a 9 on the river. And now I feel like I actually have the best hand. So I decide to check and try to get him to bluff with ace high or something like that. He decides to go ahead and make a bet of half pot. Again, this bet means nothing. It's a half pot bet. It's a total worst bluff you're ever going to see now. These are scary because people don't bluff rivers often enough. But he can bet here with 8s, right? 7s. Hands like that maybe we're passive on the flop. Even fives can look good to you here after this betting structure. Like when I bet the turn and then check the river, and I'm only checking the river because I made the 9. If the 9 doesn't come off, I don't check the river. I keep bluffing. So we decide to check and call, and our friend here has king 7, so we induced a bluff here, which is always nice when you're able to do that, because obviously he was calling, and with 2 reasons, with, you know, to kind of set up this poor bluff, and he just cut himself by 2/3 by doing this. Like if on this river it goes to him, and instead of betting half, like there's 1369 in the pot, if he jams 1272 in, can I ever call? No. It just looks like something better than second pair. You know, he could even have flopped a full house with deuces. He could have ace 6 for sure. But, I mean, this bet is just pointless. And it sucks because later in the tournament, I kept running into half pot bets that in that context meant a lot more, and it kind of made me wonder. I actually got a message from a guy who saw the stream, and he showed me a hand where I had folded the half pot bet, and in game I had screamed, oh, half pot bet means nothing, and but I had to fold it because I just didn't have the equity. He showed me a screenshot of that hand that he went back and found in his poker tracker. He actually had trips, or he had flopped a set. And in the later stages of the tournament, it does have meaning because that's when players make bad bets to get called. At this point, early in the tournaments and when they're kind of in risky spots, it's bad bluff size. People are usually half pot size bets don't mean shit. They just mean I want to bet something and half pot seems like it's okay. Like you want to bet small or you want to bet big. Stay away from half pot. Ace queen off, 2.5 blind out of under the gun. We get a call from the small blind and flop triple queens, and that's pretty good. I decided to go ahead and check this one only because of this specific player. He flopped a lot, he raised a lot, so I thought maybe something would happen. Now at this point in the tournament, I'm very loose, obviously, but I had been running super hot at this point. Like I was kind of doing very well in the tournament. This is still Lebowski. He decides to lead turn. I go ahead and just call it. River comes off, and it's 657. There's no reason to not bet here, and you can see I'm betting half pot in order to get called. Our friend here decides to go ahead and raise to 16, which this is kind of that Jonathan Little thing of make a bad bet, get raised. Obviously, we're never folding. There's no point in re-raising. What hand does he ever check here that check raises on the river? Check raising on the river is, at these stakes that I play, 90% of the time it's a move. And I'm kind of upset that this wasn't a move because usually they just jam all in and you snap them off for their whole stack. But he just did it with a pair of 4s. And he was turning his hand into a bluff, and I guess my river bet just kind of induced this. I bet he felt pretty silly after that, but definitely had the right read that the player was very active and like to make some moves. Pocket queens onto the gun. We open, get called in the cutoff. Flop a trip queens. Nice. We decided to go ahead and check only because there's only one opponent in the pot. There's not a lot of draws, so there's not really much for him to have. So I just go ahead and check it. The turn comes off. I decide to check again. It goes check. We make a full house on the river, and I go for the big bet on the river. I don't know if this is the best play, but we did get called, and our friend had ace 10. So I guess in this specific instance, it is the best play because we were able to get 6.5 blinds on the river. On this flop, if we bet anything, he's just gonna fold. Right, he may take one off, but on the turn, he's definitely folding. You know what I'm saying? So we'd have to check turn and then, bet the river and think he hero calls it? No. Because I would have king, queen, or queen, jack, or something sometimes and be pot controlling on the turn. So I think in this specific instance, because we had so much of the board, it just made so much sense to just check all the way and then make an 80%, 70% pot bet on the river, which I was, it's not unreasonable to call with an ace. It's kind of silly to call with ace 10. Like if you had ace jack here, I could see it. And it is a dividing line, and it seems like a small thing, but it's really not. Ace King obviously should call here, but he never has Ace King because he didn't 3-bet. Now, granted, I'm under the gun. There's a possibility he might have, just called with the Ace King, wanted to try to catch and then play the trap in position. That's fine. But considering he didn't make any moves, I think this bet really worked out well. Because it just looked like bullshit to him, when we bet that big on the river after not making any aggressive action at any time. So that was a nice pot to win. You see a raise in the small blind at 3 big blinds. I had just gotten to this table. Mid stages at this point. I had just gotten to this table, and this big blind, or no, I'm sorry, other way around. I was at this table, and this player had just been moved in like 2 hands prior, and he was this monster stack, right? So when he raises, I decided I'm going to defend a little wider the first time around to see if I can pull a move on this guy. I make the straight draw. He goes ahead and bets micro. This 1/5. This is pointless. There's no point to this bet. When you raise from the small blind, your c-bet should be about 2/3 pot. It's not like playing regular, in any other position. You're raising from the small blind into the big blind. These are the widest ranges on the table. Latest position opening, in position playing. So this has the greatest advantage versus the widest range. So when you raise from the small blind, your continuation bet should be somewhere around 2/3 or better pot. If I'm going to c-bet this, I'm going to go 4.5 to 5 blinds. Because I'm saying, I raised you because I have a pair. Oh, look, there's no cards higher than my pair on the board. I bet. That is the sentence that I'm trying to convey to my opponent. This tip-tap bullshit, it's not the time for that. You don't do this. This accomplishes 0. All this does is give proper prices to draw and bluff you. Which is, of course, what I fucking did. With my equity in the straight draw and my stack size, I'm willing to get it in right now with this straight draw, but I would make this raise with air. Like, all I need in this spot to make this raise is a queen in my hand. A hand like Queen 8 or Queen Jack or something, or sorry, Queen 10, obviously. Queen King, I think I might have 3-bet pre-flop, but I might not have. But all those hands can make this exact same bet when faced with this c-bet. He does make the call. Again, I believe this is an embarrassment call, meaning he just wants to save face. Then he leads the turn for 1/4 of the pot. What are you trying to say here, bro? What hand are you raising with a pre-flop, betting super micro on the flop, calling a raise on the flop, and then leading the turn for a small 1/4 pot bet? What's the hand? I don't know what it is. What's the fucking hand? Like, this person is stuck in 2002, and they're using these tester bets. It's ridiculous. People used to call them probe bets. I'm going to find out where I'm at by betting. And as TJ Cloutier used to say, if you need to bet to find out where you're at, you should leave the poker game. You got to know where you're at. So, of course, we ship it in his stupid face, and he folds. And this is just a guy who was infatuated with his big stack and jacking off all over himself with his 92 big blinds, which incidentally are down to 80 now. So thank you very much for that, kind sir. Like, he took me from 33 blinds to 53. That's a huge swing. And now I'm a nightmare for him in the big blind. I love the way I played this hand. Jack 8 off suit. We see raise on the button to 2.2. This raise is too small. This tournament's just starting. You see the stacks, 90, 86, 94, 84, 83, 88. This is near the start of the tournament. You should be raising to no less than 3 big blinds. On the button, I'm probably going 3.5. I'm not as good about it as I should be. It's a little leak that I have. I kind of am a little too cheap with the blinds early. But with a decent hand on the button, you should be raising to 3.5. Yeah, between 3 and 3.5 blinds, somewhere in there. Because the stacks are so big, you need to reduce the stack to pot ratio when we make a pot. So I, of course, call for a pittance, getting 5 to 1, and I make a jack. And, we check because there's no real reason to bet. Our opponent checks back. The deuce of clubs on the turn. We decide to check, and our friend now bets 3.6 blinds. It's better than a half pot bet, but not by much. I think if you had a jack here, or if you had a good club here, you should bet bigger. You should bet like 4.25 blinds, just because you want to really protect your hand against any club that may be drawing, which I can have every club in the deck. We decide to go ahead and call, because obviously I'm not giving it up too quickly. I check back, looking for my opponent to bluff the river, and he does oblige. Again, there's no real reason to raise here, just because what can he... This is one of those ones where I don't usually subscribe to this philosophy of what can he call me with, because the usual answer with that, especially at the stakes I play, is what can call you? A bad player. But this is one of the ones where I think because there's so many combinations of hands out here, and our hand is so weak, that we're just inducing a bluff to bluff catch, and that's pretty much it. And this, we do get bluffed here a great portion of the time, so it kind of makes sense the way we play this hand. I think in order to raise here or to lead the river, I would need 2 pair, because of the flush and straight draw combinations. Or I guess I could do it with the ace jack with the ace of clubs. That would be fine. But there's just so much up in the air. Like, he can have anything, really. He can have jack 10 very easily. So I just go ahead and call, and our opponent shows us ace 9. Really a total airball bluff. Now, I like his bluff based on what his hand was, because you don't want to have a club because you want to think I'm on the draw. But I think he kind of fabricated this, and you got to remember, he started with a raise of 2.2. Think about it on this flop. If he made it 3.5 or 3 even on the button, and I did decide to defend, which I probably would, and a jack hit the flop, and now there's 7 big blinds in the pot, and he bets 5. I might take a card off, but I'm not going to like it. So then I call the 5, and now there's 17 in the pot, and on the turn he bets 13. I have to give this up, right? And he puts himself at far less risk. He ended up losing 15 blinds on this pot, where that move would be working 90% of the time, and he wouldn't have that much at risk, because by the time he makes the big bet on the turn, he should know whether or not it's good. So I don't think this was advised. Plus, he had a good hand on the button. You know, ace 9's not great, but on the button, it's okay. You know, you can definitely play it like it's ace jack coming out of middle position if you think in those standards. It's fine. But he didn't really try to accomplish anything. So, you know. Ace 10 suited. We make a raise in the hijack. We get called by the big blind. Flop a gutty. I decided to go ahead and bet this one. I don't always bet these. This is actually, there's a good case here for checking back, because our ace high is good often. We have backdoor straight and flush draws. But I felt like because it was just the big blind, there aren't that many queens in his range. There's a few, but there's just as many in my range. So he calls, deuce hits the turn, he checks, and I decide to go ahead and continue the story and bet 7 big blinds, just because I still feel like there's too many draws. Now the deuce comes out, it's much less likely he has a deuce, and he goes ahead and folds. And this is one where you just got to bet twice. And I can't really explain, I think I said this in game, I can't really explain why this board texture I decided to keep betting, and I felt like I was going to go bet, and that was the best move here. I really can't explain it. I just know it's an amalgam of things I noticed and knowledge. This board isn't typically good for this strategy, because the big blind is going to be defending with all Broadway cards. And if that's the case, and he made a pair here, how easily am I getting him off of even a jack? Like, he'd have to have one of the worst jacks in the deck, right? But a defensible jack, jack 9, I mean, is he giving it up on this turn? I mean, he probably should, facing this much aggression, right? But this is one where I just kind of muscled it. And it's interesting, because it didn't... looking back, it doesn't make much sense, but at the time it worked perfectly. And I felt like, and I knew it was going to work perfectly in game. It's one of those ones I can't really explain, but there it is. It's just that board texture. Maybe he just called us, like when I'm saying when we bet the flop and he calls us, it shouldn't continue working, but for some reason I felt like it did. Maybe he just called us with total air, looking to play a move. Maybe that was that rare situation, and I picked up on that in some kind of timing thing. I don't know. Ace-Jack suited. I think this is an interesting one. Yeah, 100 big blinds deep. I am super stacked up in this tournament. This is one of the ones we ran super deep in. You can see the other stacks. The average stack is 20K. Let me show you here. My stack is 55,000. This is one where you start with 5K. So we're doing very well. We see a raise out of first, 2.73. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a 30 big blind stack to be making that raise at this stage in the tournament. But I decided to just call it because of that fact instead of 3-betting. Flop comes off pretty nothing. He now bets super small. Again, you know, I'm not going to fold the ace-jack right away. The queen of diamonds is better for my hand than it is for my range. He decides to check, and I do go ahead and bet 2/3 pot, and he just folds. And this is one where, by not 3-betting, I believe we got a fold out of a better hand. I don't know if it was a pair. It may have been something like tens, but it could definitely have been ace-king. We could have had the same exact hand. We could have had ace-jack. But this is one where not 3-betting really did the trick. And it was his weird open that did it. You know, this 2.73. He was clicking the half pot bet to open. That's what that bet is. And that's just people acting too quickly and not thinking. So, you know, little fishy, a guy who plays on Sunday. You know, that's it. He doesn't play the rest of the week. Ace-king suited. Standard 3-bet. We are two of the big stacks, so it's whatever. Flop comes off with a jack. He checks, and for some reason I decided to bet 2/3 pot. I was running really good yesterday, like I said. Player does call. And to me, this says more heart draws than anything. Like, what jacks is he raising with out of first position? He could have some hands like queens, I guess. But I feel like that's a 4-bet pre-flop a lot, you know. Now, granted, we are both deep stacks, so maybe he wanted to see a safe flop. But if you did, wouldn't you check raise? And my flop bet is very sizable. Like, if you have queens here, you kind of have to decide now. Like, you kind of have to say, okay, I'm either never going to fold this hand, so I'm just going to let this guy keep bluffing into me, or you have to say, okay, I'm going to raise right now to protect my queens, or you have to ditch it. If your read is that I might have aces or kings here, you kind of have to ditch it. And I did 3-bet pre-flop, and I 3-bet fairly large, so, you know. So my c-bet here can't be standard, because if we make it 7 big blinds here, it's just too easy for a pair of queens to check raise. A pair of 10s can even check raise, a pair of 9s. Anybody with a jack isn't going anywhere, so my bet has to be more sizable. I'm representing an overpair here, and there are a few overpairs. I can also have a set of jacks here or a jack and try to be protecting against the heart draw. Basically, my hand is, I have a good hand. I don't want any hearts to come off. That's the story we're telling. He does call. Scary. We have 69 blinds left. There's 48 in the pot. He has us covered just barely, but we're just about the same stack. He checks. I decide to go ahead and bet again. And the purpose for this bet is now I have to take the very risky proposition of making it look like I'm trying to get my chips in the pot. So now I can't even bluff so big that I'm saying, now I'm saying, okay, look, man, at this point I'm committed. If you want to get the money here on the turn, I am more than happy to do that with pocket aces. Let's do it. Like, that's what this bet says. He does just call it, though. And now with 38 blinds in the river and 109 in the pot, we got one move left. And bang-a-lang. There it is. And, wheat. This one made me very happy. Because I just knew it was going to work. Once he called the flop bet, I knew this was going to work. The sizing was awkward, though. Normally on this turn, you're going to bet about 2/3 pot. You're talking about, what is that? Divided by 2 is 50. So what is that, like 15, 16, 32, 33 blinds? But I backed it off a little bit because I wanted it to look like I wanted to get the money in. So maybe he just had a draw, sure. But I definitely think there's a lot of instances here where this player has a jack. Sometimes he has a queen and folds, but, you know, we're left with no other option. We set it up perfectly. And I think he just realized now, like, once I put all the money in, I think he realizes, holy shit, I really fucked up. And the player's VPIP was 40%. No pre-flop raising really going on. So, very passive. Could definitely have been a draw monkey for this many chips. Can't believe it happened that deep in the tournament. And, this stack is fucking ridiculous now. 8-9, 65 blinds. I decided to limp one because the player only has 30 big blinds, so he's getting near jam territory with decent hands. We check and flop the nuts. I decided to go ahead and bet one big blind. I did it very quickly because I was doing that I bet a blind if you don't have anything you can't call kind of vibe. He does call. The deuce comes on the turn. I decide to bet bigger. This is what you would do on a bluff. On a bad bluff, this is what you would do. A better bluff bets bigger on the flop. He does call, make the super nuts on the river, the absolute, 6-card straight jammy. And I overbet for 59. Now, I'm putting him all in, but all in here is 2.5x pot. And this is one where it's supposed to look so much like bullshit, like a busted flush draw or a busted straight draw, that I'm good. A lot of players will put you on 8-7 here, where you had a 7 on the flop, the open ender, and then it just ran out bad for you. So you're now jamming the river, and I am a big stack, so I can play this bully move. Player goes ahead and calls and shows us Jack-7. Probably a hand he should have raised on the flop. We may have gotten it all, but this was the worst way for him to get it in, because he wasn't screwed. If we go back to it, he had more than the chip average. I'm saying I'm a monster at this point in the Boski, but he had more than the chip average. Like, he didn't need to go broke here. It was 30 blinds, but the structure's long. So this river bet is absolutely the key, and it's 2.5x pot. And if you think people don't call these, you're absolutely wrong. I had one where I had to call it yesterday, and I stand by that call. I happened to be wrong, but it was I believe it was a cooler because I ended up runnering trips, and the guy ended up gut shotting me for the nuts. So, whatever. Because the bets are usually bullshit. I also called a few of those yesterday that were good. 10-9. See a raisin first. I love this hand. I have a lot of chips in this tournament. Obviously, you can see. Like, the average is 17-5. What do I have? 37-8. So I'm stacked up. It's early, but I'm stacked up. I think I had a double early on with jacks or something in this one. So we see a 4-way pot. We make a 9. That's pretty damn good. Checks to me, and I decide to just bet. Protect the hand. It's fine. 2/3 pot. We get called by the small blind. Kind of interesting. He can have a lot of spooky hands. He now leads for all in on the turn into 22 blinds for 36 blinds. Now, this is our friend from before. This is the same guy who I triple barrel bluffed, and I had a slight suspicion that he may have been watching. I was spamming the tables with Qui-Gon Broke on Twitch. I had a small suspicion he may have been watching, because this hand happened about 3 hands after the bet hand came off, and I think he was tilted because he started doing some weird things. And to me, this just seemed like a very easy call. This is never anything that beats top pair, and the 4 is kind of scary, but yeah, just a total airball tiltorama, trying to get his revenge, and did not work. Whether he was watching the stream or not, he was definitely going for revenge. He couldn't wait to make this bet and show me that he had nothing. Like, I guarantee you, if I had folded, he would have shown us the queen jack. But this turn bet is just so ludicrous. Like, you called the flop and then jammed the turn. What hand do you have here that beats me that does this? The only hand I think you ever have here that beats me that does this is exactly like 6 deuce or 4 deuce. Like, because I don't know if 9 deuce even plays it pre-flop for a blind and a half. I mean, maybe if you're tilted, but this, I thought he was going to roll over a flush draw. I really thought he was going to roll over like the 3 something or the 5 something of clubs or the 7-5 or something like that. But just nope, totally airballed it, and yeah, worked out good for me. Made me a nice big pot. Pocket aces. Why are we reviewing pocket aces? 2.5 in the big blind, or in first position, big blind calls. Oh, I remember this one. Yeah. So flop comes off about as bad for aces as it can, flush and straight draw. Player checks. I decide to bet big to protect again. Doesn't work. Get called. Now, here's the interesting part of this hand. If I got called on the flop by a 10. That 10 now has a pair. I have the club draw. It's very unlikely that our opponent defended with 2 random clubs, right? So in game, I remember I said, I think I'm good here, but I need to get the money in. He led at us for 2/3 pot. To me, this says, okay, bro, I got enough. I'll go with it right here. If you want to go with it right here, I will do that with my aces all day long. I really thought he was going to show up with, like, I don't know, ace 10, king 10, something like that. But he folded. And it's like, why are you trying to represent a gut shot? Like, this is another bad bluff. You're representing too few hands. That's the problem. Like, this turn's actually great for me. The bad turns for me are jacks and sixes. You know what I'm saying? The good turns are tens. You know what I'm saying? Because you're more likely to have a 10 and draw than you are a jack. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when a 10 comes off, it doesn't complete your draw with your jack in your hand. You know, it completes a pair. So when he bets 2/3 pot here, he should be wanting to get it in, but he actually, I think, was doing this to block bet. To block, check, see the river that wasn't a club, and then maybe get the money in. But it also smacked of a hell of a bluff. I think he had something like king 10. There's a small world in which we bluffed him off the 6, where he had the ass end of the straight, but yeah, I don't know if you folded at that point. Especially not the way I was playing yesterday. I was really chipped up and bullying. 6-6. Get called. Nothing really great here. But I decided to go ahead and bet 2/3 pot. In a 3-way pot, I like these sometimes where it's like I'm just representing the queen and I'm going to try to take it down. We do get called on the button and the big blind calls. So when the button called in game, I was like, well, that's that. And I was like, I'm done with this fucking hand. Then the 6 hits the turn. That was a lot of fun. And it checks to me now, should I stop betting? No, because if they think I'm full of shit, I should probably try to continue looking like I'm full of shit. So I bet again. I get a fold here. I get jammed on all in. It's obviously great times for us. And the river comes off, and the player just has top pair queen. I raise this flop. I raised pre-flop. I bet the flop and bet the turn, right? If I had checked the turn, I know we don't get it all, because then I could be checking king queen for pot control, right? Like, but when I bet the flop into 2 players big and then bet the turn, how much more likely is it that I'm bluffing? Pretty likely. And that's why I bet big on the turn. And he just decides, well, this guy's only got 22 blinds. He's going to go bet anyway. I'm just going to put him in now before spade comes off. And yeah, queen 10. For 100 big blind pot. Pretty crazy. Just called this one because this player was a deep stack with us. He was actually one of the few guys who had more chips than me in this tournament at this point. So I decided to just go ahead and call it. He bets half pot, which again means nothing. So of course I call it. The queen comes off on the turn. This is the hand that's very interesting. If I had 3-bet this one pre-flop, it may have gone differently. I doubt it. But I'm in the top of my range in this late position. I kind of want him to be bluffing. So I didn't feel like he had a king. And the queen hit the turn. And now he bets half pot again, which again means nothing. Because it's going to get called so frequently. So of course I call it with the queen. And I make the queen on the river. So now I have trip queens. And the only hand I'm really concerned about, honestly, is pocket tens. But I don't think it bets that way. Ace king can bet this way a lot. You know what I'm saying? Trying to test out, see if I have something. Ace jack's very unlikely for me to have. He then bets 87 blinds. And here's the thing. We were very near the bubble. We were less than 20 players from the cash in this one. And it sucks. But I can't fold here. And I'm going to run the numbers right now to show that I can't fold. This is more so for me than it is for him. So Now we're trying to win tournaments, obviously, right? So making big folds is never a great idea. But let's construct a reasonable range for him. He's in the cutoff hijack with 80 plus big blinds, right? So, with 80 plus big blinds from the hijack, raise first in. He's raising all of these hands. Now what we're going to do is bring up Equilab, and I'm going to put this range in versus my range and the board and see what we get. So I'll leave it over there. So we'll move this over here. So we're going to construct his range. His range is every ace, every king down to king 4. This is a perfect GTO range. Obviously, people aren't perfect, but we're going to start from this baseline. Let's see. Down to 8-8. This one and this one. This one. And all the way over. All these in here. I mean, this is a pretty wide range. I mean, you have, you have a lot to work with here. 8-9 off, 9-7 off. Okay, these three aren't in there. And I just need to do this to kind of make myself feel better. You can kind of guess what happened in this scenario. 7-7, 7-6, 6-6, 5-5, 4-4, deuce-deuce, 3-3. The 6-5, 7-6 suited, 8-6 suited, 9-7 suited. Oh, god damn it. Oh, look at that. I could just increase the ratio. Nice. I used the mouse wheel, sorry. It's going to take just a second. 10-9 off is out of there. Ace-9, Ace-7's out of there. King 4 is in. Queen 8, Jack 8, 10-8. 10-7 suited down. 8-6, 7-6, 6-5. Okay, so this is a perfect GTO range, okay, of what he should open with. It's 30% of the deck. Apply all those hands. Versus my actual hand of Ace of Clubs, Queen of Hearts. Okay? My range already is 60%. Okay? Because of how wide he's going to open. It's fine. Now we're going to make the flop here. King of Diamonds. 10 of Clubs. 8 of Spades. The turn is the Queen of Diamonds. The river is the Queen of Spades. Now let's see. We win on the river 85% of the time. This is why this was upsetting when people were bitching in game. 85% of the time we win. So 85% of the time I'm supposed to call here. And I knew that in game. And you can say, well, doesn't he only just jam the nuts? No. And Pocket Kings doesn't play this way. Pocket Tens doesn't play this way. Oh, hey, Gray Fox. How you doing, my man? Good to see you too, buddy. I know it's Monday, not a lot of people around. I'm running the numbers on a hand where I lost, but I knew I was correct to call. So you can say, well, you have to be right so often here because it is near the money and this, that, and the other. The other thing is, because we were so close to the cash, it inflicts another level to it because we're like 15 or 16 off the cash in this tournament, and we have a monster stack. He's one of the very few players in the tournament who has more chips than us. If you were going to bluff, this is how you would do it. You would be like, give me the pot, and then jam the river. He can honestly have ace-king here a lot. And this is a perfect standard for us. Now, I got to do all this math. There's 29.68 in the pot. Oh, God damn it. 29.68. God damn it. 68. Plus My call off of 52.62 is what he's betting. So we can add that in twice. So I'm calling 52.62 to win 134.92. Okay? Check this out. 52.62 divided by 134.92. I only need 40% pot equity. Look what I got. Woo! I need 39%. I got 39%. It's a call. It's a call all day because of this. This hand makes no sense. And it's just a cooler. It's just a cooler. That's all this is. I'm not supposed to fold here. That's why I'm doing this math. So that the next time this happens, I don't fold. And here's the thing. This happened to me several times yesterday. And this is the one time. And you see, 85% equity. Poker Tracker says 95%. You know what I'm saying? Because of versus the deck. Versus the deck, I'm 95%. We cut out a lot of hands this player can have because of using proper GTO range. But ace-queen in this scenario versus every other combination in the deck, if it was in play, is 95%. I'm saying 85% because a reasonable range of GTO. Ace-jack. I think ace-jack and kings are the only hands that play this hand this way. And when that's the case, there's not enough combinations to justify a fold. I stand by this. I'm not being pig-headed. I learn from my mistakes. I'm very good for the past year and a half or so. I'm more critical of myself and my poker game, I think, than I've ever been. And I know, I don't think, I know I played this hand correctly. I'm not, if you fold this hand, you're going to go broke. This is one where I don't advise making big folds with big hands. Now, here's the other thing. You got to remember, what do you think about him shoving there? I think it's a bluff most of the time because it makes no sense. Because here's the thing. Look, you got to look at this whole hand. Here's the thing. We are 15 or 16 off the cash, right? We're less than 20 off the cash, right? He has 88,000. I have 57,000. The average is 38.2. We are monster stacks in this tournament, right? I'm like top 20. He's like top 2 or 3. It's crazy how many chips are going around here, right? A starting stack in this thing is, I think, 5K was in this one. So his bet on the flop means nothing. And I was right to think it means nothing because he just has a gut shot here. He makes the gut shot on the turn, right? And my thing is, this is one of those ones where my read got muddled because based on his bets and stuff, he shouldn't have a king a lot. When he doesn't have a king, I should be ahead. So he bets half pot again. I can't really raise because I need more information. You know what I'm saying? So when I call and the queen trips the river, like this is all day. This is I'm fine with it. And when he jammed, I didn't take very long in game, and I said there's some combinations that beat us, but not many. Like a lot of times here, we're going to see queen jack. And honestly, that's the most common scenario here, is that he opened queen jack, which is in that range, hit trips on the turn, you know, bet with his draw again, or hit the queen on the turn, bet with his draw again, which with a 9 or an ace can make him the nuts, and then trips it on the river. Queen jack's kind of a great shove here, because how do I ever have ace jack? How do I ever have kings? How do I ever have tens? The only hand I can really have that beats you is exactly queen 10 or pocket eights. That's it. So if you have queen jack here, you should probably over jam and get hero called by king jack. You know what I'm saying? So I stand by this 100%. And I kind of tossed and turned last night, and I got up and actually had a piece of paper next to the bed and wrote this hand out. And I'm surprised. I think I got all the suits right and everything. And I did the math very quickly on paper, and I was like, yeah, I'm supposed to call here. And 85% of the time I'm good versus the deck 95% of the time. And this just happened to be that 5%. What are you going to do? So I feel fine about it. It obviously stings, but that's poker. Let's go on to the next one. Let's forget about it.
what would I do with ace jack in his position? I don't think I would jam it, not because I would be afraid to be beat. I would be afraid not to get called.
Plus, we were on the bubble, so, like, couldn't I have a set of eights that filled up? Like, are you trying to push me off of a full house? I would have bet differently on the turn, on the flop and the turn. I would have bet smaller on the flop, bigger on the turn, and then had a nice sizable bet on the river. We probably would have played a 40 to 50 big blind pot. That's about it. I get 3-bet on the button. I have 132 blinds. This is how ridiculous this run was. The average is 24K. I have 66 now, right? It's kind of near the start, but we're at 250, 500. So we're like 6 or 7 levels in. You know what I'm saying? So I'm doing very well at this point. You know, your starting stack is 20K. I've better than tripled up. I have just a pile of blinds. I believe it was right before this I became chip leader of the tournament. And fun fact, I kept that for about 3.5 hours of the tournament going forward. So I got it early and kept it. We flopped the flush draw and the overcard. Our opponent bets less than half pot. This is kind of like the meaningless half pot bet. I think if you're going to bet range here, you need to bet a little smaller. This is just too close. You know what I'm saying? Like 7.5 blinds is half pot. You kind of backed it off a little. No, you're going to find third pot. You want to bet 5 here. A nice 5.25, you know, is a good size range c-bet. That being said, I have way too much equity to ever fold. 4 on the turn. Shouldn't be much of a change. I go check, he goes check. River comes off, and of course we bet. And when you make these bets, you have to bet them big. So this is more than 2/3 pot. This is about 70%, and gets the job done. And this situation came up a ton yesterday. A ton. They c-bet the flop, they check the turn, and then you can donk on the river. This is a great way to steal. And the thing to remember is people don't bluff the river enough. That's population. Now, higher level players will. But until you get into 200 buy-in online, you're not going to run into that many of these guys because they have to have bankroll problems. Good players usually don't have bankroll problems unless they've made dumb decisions and had some bad luck in life. And I do consider myself a better than average player. But if the population doesn't bluff the river enough, you should bluff it more because they're going to overfold. Like a queen shouldn't fold here, right? Ever. Now, I don't really think he had a queen here, but if a queen should never fold here, should tens call? Yeah, probably. When we get into 9s and 8s, we're kind of getting murky. But what can I realistically have? Pretty much just ace, queen, queens, you know, king, queen. Personally, I'm doing this with pocket jacks because I know population overfolds the river. But player specific, I might check it looking to check call a river bet with jacks. But yeah, it's interesting. He 3-bet pre-flop. I feel like this is one where our opponent just has like pocket. He could have pocket like 9s or 8s or something. But I feel like he had like ace jack or ace king with us, you know, ace jack. But yeah, we just have too much equity. And if he has the ace of clubs in his hand, it's an easier call to make with ace king. But it's kind of a hard call to make overall the way the betting went down. Now, if he had bet the turn, you know what I'm saying? If he just bets, even though his flop bet is shitty, if he bets this turn for just 18 blinds, I'm not even going to continue with my actual hand. I just don't have enough equity. But I can check it, get to the river, and then who the hell has a club draw here? If anybody, it's me, right? I could have called with, you know, the ace. I could have had like the ace 5 of clubs or something, picked up a club draw on the turn, hit it on the river, you know, ace deuce of clubs, all those things. And people know that now, so this is a great bluff spot. 6s. Get 3-bet.
Flop a 6. It should be noted, I have
146 blinds after the call. This player has 35. I don't know why people think the big stack is always full of shit. you should take your hands on a case-by-case basis. But I have so many chips, you really shouldn't be trying to pull moves on me. I'm just too rich. You can't threaten the rich man. He bets half pot, which again means nothing. I decide to go ahead and call it. I don't even feel like I'm at risk of a draw here, because who's more likely to have a draw, the opener or the three-better? Probably the three-better. So I'm really just worried about action killers, you know? Jack hits the turn. I decide to check. He checks back. River's a king. This is a scenario where I did the jam on the river, because there's a lot of kings out there, right? He can have ace-king. He can have king-queen. He can have some king jacks. He can have a lot of hands. He can never have a straight here, right? So a set is effectively the nuts. When a set is effectively the nuts, you can bet. Now, this is a much different board than the other guy who jammed against me. I think this one gets hero called a lot more and is rarely bluffed. As weird as that sounds, this spot by the sixes, right, by this player who's betting out a turn, it's rarely a bluff. But it gets hero called a lot. So when you do it, if you have the monster, just shove it all in. And here's the thing. I'm doing the obnoxious thing of shoving all my 138 blinds into the pot when this player only has 26 left. I could have just clicked the bet pot, but this, I think, gets called more than clicking bet pot. It's also not for 80 blinds, which would have been the collective thing. Looks like you had some deep runs. What did you win? Not much. We'll get to that. Oh, it's coming up shortly. Don't worry. I did okay. It was a profitable Sunday, but it wasn't great. He does go ahead and call us. And interestingly, with pocket tens. So he had an overpair. He turned a gut shot. I don't know why he stopped betting. But then he called us on the river. And I think he was pretty much done with the hand. But our betting just looks like such bullshit that he gave us another 80 big blinds. 197 blinds now. It's just fucking bananas. Pocket J's. This is that same tournament. 2.5 big blinds. Called and called. We flop a set of jacks. And, I mean, this was just all day yesterday. I decided to bet small just because of the multiple players and the draws out there. I feel like I'm going to get action. I do get called once by the big blind. The heart draw is not great. It's very likely he has a heart. It's very likely he has, he can have all the 6-7 draws for straights. He can have all the heart draws. So I decided to go ahead and pot control. 7 on the river. Now there's a 4-card straight and a flush draw in a very likely scenario where a set is not good. My opponent bets over pot. How do you like it? It's an interesting thing, too. Poker Tracker recognizes that in the small blind, this player has the deck. Versus the deck, this set is only going to win 65% of the time. I don't even have the pot odds. I'm only going to win 34% of the time here. So, pretty easy fold. It's just a bad run out. But what did I lose on that one? Not much, right? I raised pre-flop. I put 3.7 more blinds into it, right? And then I was just done with it. Pretty proud of that discipline on the big stack, by the way. It would have been... Because here's the thing. When a player overbets pot, they're making a statement. This is rarely a bluff here. But a lot of players on this big stack would be like, well, I got a set of jacks. I should just call. No, you shouldn't. If you're supposed to lose on a big stack or on a little stack, you're supposed to lose on a big stack. So, interesting one. Oh, I went too far. Hang on. Two big blinds. I 3-bet on the button. This was a fun one because I had to do the quick math in my head. It cost... what was it? Like 23 blinds to call to win this pot, which is now, was that 30, 60, 62, 63, 64 blinds almost. So it's kind of close. If it's a race, I should call here every time on the big stack. This is the spots you want. I kind of figured out that this player would have to do it, and I think I said with tens in game. I have it clipped. I cut it out because I wanted to show that I called the hand. I think I said if you have tens, you should do this, and if he has tens, I'm happy about it. And you know, yeah, jacks, close enough. And I hit the king, but that doesn't matter. It's the fact that I figured out that it was a draw, because that's really the only, when we have an open here in my 3-bet and this player jams, it's for 30 big blinds. It's pretty much got to be a pair. Sometimes it's ace king, but we have a king, which is less likely. Sometimes it's ace queen. Not really though. It's really not a great play with ace queen, especially versus the chip leader when you know you're going to get called. So really the only thing I was worried about was ace king, kings or queens. Obviously we have blockers to all those. Aces is the most likely hand that I'm going to lose to here. But there's only 6 combinations. So, and this player opening, he must have had something, and then it was too much heat. So when he gets 3-bet and jammed on, he's going to throw a lot of aces into the muck. A lot of ace jacks, ace queens, things like that. So because of the second dynamic, and it was a 3-bet, 4-bet, I think that makes this call easier. But in game, I think I said it was tens, and it turns out to be jacks, which was good to have that. And that was just clarity of the range knowledge. See a raise in first. We see a call here. I decided to go ahead and make the big 3-bet. I am playing big stack bully now. The blinds have gone up. I still have just about as many chips. Player in first position decides to jam. This is another one that was kind of complicated, and I thought about it, and I was thinking about his 34 big blind range, and this one I did say exactly jacks is what he would have had. So yeah. I did say exactly jacks. I said, do you have to do this with jacks? And I figured it out and made the call and hit the ace on the old Rivsky. And another great pot. And here's the thing. If it's a race, I should call. And I just had to figure out if it was a race. And to me, the most likely scenario, again, was that it was a race. And I called it in game. I said, if you have jacks, you have to jam here. And because I don't think queens does. I think queens is strong enough you can actually call, see a decent flop, still have 23 blinds left, but I think jacks, you need the fold equity and you need the race. So it's never kings or aces, right? So really I was just trying to decide if it was ace king. That's highly possible, but I think it's just as likely that it's jacks, tens, or nines coming out of first, especially from a tight player. The stats kind of gave it away too. So nice little one. I don't remember this one. Min raise, I call. Oh, yeah. Okay, I remember this one. Flop a 10. Guy makes a micro raise to nothing, kind of silly. I decide to go ahead and make the raise, or the raise right here. The check raise is pretty good. He decides to call, and I called it in game. This is what I call an embarrassment call, meaning you raise pre-flop, you made a flick bet on the flop, and then got check raised immediately. Players know that you're not check raising sets and 2 pairs here too often. Usually you're going to save those for turn bets, at least population is. So the embarrassment call comes when you have ace king or ace queen, and you're like, well, I'm going to take this card off, even though I should give it up right now, to see if I can hit an ace or a queen. This is the dumb call, because you should know that on this turn, if one of your cards doesn't hit, no matter what card hits, unless it's an ace, I'm betting again. And I'm going to bet big. There's going to be 15 in the pot. You only have 19 left. So I'm going to bet again. You should already know this. That's why making that embarrassment call is not a good idea, because you're going to get one shot at 6 outs. That's 12%. If you don't have that equity, you can't do it. And he didn't. And he checks, and I go ahead and bet half his stack. I'm just like, dude, if you're that sticky with your 2 overcards, go ahead. This is essentially leveraging his whole stack. I basically looked at him and I said, okay, you have 19, I bet 10. I'm trying to make him realize the money needs to go in now. And he folds. I could have just jammed on it, but I think this is a better play. Remember that hand for later. We raise out of first, get called. Doing pretty good still in this one. It's just much deeper now in the tournament. We've taken a couple losses, but I'm still near the top. in chips. We go ahead and bet a little bit better than half pot. I'm trying to get called here, obviously. 9 on the turn, not bad. This player's in the blind, remember, so he can have anything. I decide to go ahead and pump the pot up now. He does call. River comes off a 4. It's pretty safe for me. So he checks, and I decide to go ahead and jam it all in. This was very close to the bubble, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And the reason why I went with the jam and not the 2/3 pot bet is because I felt like because of the bubble dynamic, this player was far more likely to call. And I said that at the time, and then he took about a minute and change before finally folding. So I really feel like this guy had a queen, and we almost got him. I had already hurt this guy for a lot of chips earlier, and then I took a bad beat, but not to him. So I think he really wanted to call me, but I think he just had something like Queen Jack or Queen 10. And because we were so close to the bubble, I think it tipped him over the line that he didn't want to call it and be wrong. But I think we almost got the call here. I think betting 2/3 pot has a less likelihood of getting called, honestly, than this jam. Because it looks like a bet. And I've been doing this so much. I hadn't been caught yet. And I was waiting, and this seemed like the boiling point. But I like the betting here. It was really well done. Pocket fours. See a raise, and I call it. Flop comes off ace 3-8. Pretty bad for pocket fours. Player bets 1/3 pot. I am going to take a card off. I remember this when I was watching the playback, and I was like, I'm going to take one off. And then the one hit, and I went, that's the card I want right there. So he checks. Now, obviously, if we had an ace, we would check back. River comes off a deuce. He checks again, confirming he has nothing. And I just go ahead and check back. This is one where I could have bluffed it, but I didn't feel like it was necessary. So we just checked it down. There's some argument to be made here for betting, but does he fold 9s here? You know, pocket 9s. Does he fold pocket 7s? You know what I'm saying? I don't think he folds an 8, which he can definitely have. He can have a hand like 8-9 or, 8-10 or whatever. So I think this is one where there's not a lot of value in betting here. So that's kind of why I wanted to highlight it. But I think it's important to realize when you should bluff and when you shouldn't. And there was really no reason to turn my hand into a bluff here, because when he checks the river, I'm just looking to get hero called. And anytime I get hero called here, I'm dead, right? Let's go to the next one. 8-4 suited. Player raises. I go ahead and defend. This is much later. We're still doing pretty good.
You see, like, these players are like telegraphing their bets. This is like a quarter pot. This is not a thing. This is not. It's a third pot. If he bets just 2 1/4 here, I just go away. But because it's so small, I'm going to float you every time. Deuce hits the turn. I check. Of course, he checks back. And what do you think we're going to do on the river? Bing. We're just going to bet 2/3 pot again. And this is that same scenario that came up like 5 times yesterday in crucial spots. And he just folds. Like, if he had just bet the flop, if I'm him versus the big blind, I'm going to bet it like I have a 10 and I don't want a diamond to come off. I'm going to bet about 4 blinds here. But a standard C bet would be like 2 1/4, 275. But you're betting less than a third of the pot. This means 0. This is like, oh, you don't have anything? Here you go. And it's just like, okay, well, then I call you, and I don't need much to bluff you off here. Like, it's just a very poor, very telling bet. 10 Jack. I think I lost this one. I'm not sure. Yeah. I remember this one. So this is after about an hour and 15 minutes of just no hands. I had 9-4 a ton, and I want to look that up after this. It's in Poker Tracker. The ACR had crashed, and we were, how many players left? Oh, shit. We were 27 players left in this tournament. This is the one I was doing really well in, but I just kept running into situations. I got coolered twice.
I lost with aces once. I got it in ace queen versus a short stack's ace king. Not a short stack, but a reasonable short stack. He had like 10 blinds. And I called it with ace queen, and I lost it to ace king. Like, things like that just kept happening. So I was about 12th or 13th in chips at this point. I think somewhere in there. And there was like 27 players left. No, I must have been like 18th in chips. So we defended the blind. The player goes ahead and c-bets. He c-bets 1/4 pot. Again, this usually doesn't mean anything. This exact player was a very good player. He had been the chip leader with me back and forth throughout this whole tournament. But again, statistically, I saw this bet and decided to go ahead and check raise. And player calls. And there's nothing left to do on the turn. There's nothing left to do but get the money in. We're in the E-call scenario. This player, you know, he's raising out a second, but we're only 7-handed. So I don't know what his range is, but I wanted to range. I wasn't going to do it because I know this is the right play, but let's go ahead and range it. So he's coming out of second position under the gun +1, or I guess it's the low jack because we're 7-handed. So let's see here. The low jack with my stack is the effective stack, 20 big blinds. So you are in the 20 big blind arena with low jack, raising first in. Here's your range, okay? I'm going to input that range in here. It's every ace, obviously. King 6 up, suited. Very good. Queen 8 down to pocket 8s. 8, 7, 7, 7, 6s and 5s. Let's see, where's pocket 9s? Pocket 9s is here. 9, 8 suited, yeah, so that goes all the way up. 9, 9. The jacks go all the way over. Okay, so all these in here are good to go. Ace 10, ace 9. Pocket 10s. And that's it. Okay, so that's the range. Versus my actual hand of the Jack of Diamonds, 10 of Spades, and on the board of 10 of Clubs, 5 of Diamonds, Deuce of Spades, 8 of Clubs. What's our equity? 79%. I know I'm right. But I have to do this sometimes just to confirm. So, you know, especially when he bets, you know, on the flop, very small. Even Poker Tracker says versus the deck we're 82%. So I have a pot size bet left. He can absolutely have overcards here: ace king, ace queen, king queen, jack queen, you know, jack 9. He can absolutely have all these hands that just crush my equity, but I am beating right now. So the only move is to get it all in. And, well, pocket aces. What are you gonna do? And that's what took me out of the tournament in 27th place. And it was just so upsetting because I was chip leader for 4 hours of that tournament. Of the 6 hours, 6.5 hours we were in that tournament, I was chip leader for 4 of them. And I wasn't chip leader for like the first hour, but then I was chip leader for like 4 hours. And then the last hour and a half, it was so depressing. I just bled. Like, I wanted to see which hands come up the most in that time. So I'm going to go by hole cards here. I want to see how often I got 9-4. Because most of these hands are from that run. There's 9-5. 9-4. Look at this. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, I knew I kept getting it. That's hilarious. Oh, well. So that's poker. In the end, it was played on Sunday, which Sunday is a very volatile day. And I did profit. I did make some money. I made like... What did I make? I made like 10% on my buy-ins. So I profited 10%. It's not great. And I can't even say that if you did that every time you played poker, you would die broke. Or you would die rich. Because at the stakes I'm playing, it's not enough. Now, if my average buy-in was $100, and I had 1,000 in buy-ins, and profited 10%, well, that's $100. And that's essentially what happened is I made a buy-in yesterday. I had 6 out there and made 1. Or, won 7. If you're playing $100 buy-in average, then yeah, you're going to do great making 10% on everything you invest. It was just one of those ones that was upsetting. It took me a long time to get past it last night. I didn't get mad, but I was just kind of bummed because it sucks to have such a sun run and, be running well, but then as much as I ran well, just went totally card dead for the last hour and a half. But I wouldn't take any of the hands back, I don't think. Even that trip queens where I called off near the bubble for, 60 blinds when I was like 8th in chips or something like that to like the chip leader. I still don't think I would have folded that one ever. I'm supposed to call 85% of the time. So it is what it is. I'm going to call it a good day. It's just something you got to get over. You can't really be upset by it. Let's do a poker coaching quiz just to kind of get me out of that headspace. And I got to go to the fucking DMV today. My birthday is in 2 days, and I got the notice in the mail. Happy birthday! Your license is going to expire. No! So I got to go down there and get the new license. So we'll do a quiz or two, and then I'll get headed over there. I don't want to go over right at noon because it's everybody's lunch hour. Our DMV out here in Henderson's pretty damn good though, so I don't mind it. Like they have like 90 windows. Lexi Gavin. All right, here's a Jonathan Little hand right here. Pocket kings. Blinds are 350, 700. He's got 20 big blinds in a $5,000 buy-in online tournament. All right, Jonathan. Let's hear it.
Here we have Pocket Kings in a $5,000 buy-in tournament. That's good. Facing an under-the-gun raise from a player who started with only 20 big blinds. Should we fold, call, re-raise to 3,200, or re-raise to 4,000?
So, it's an interesting distinction because you can see Jonathan Little has 100K, and the other guy only has 13.6. So, to start the hand. So he's doing the effective stack of the shorter stack, which is what you're supposed to do. These are the nuances that kind of leave me. But this is a bigger buy-in tournament. Yeah, I think I want to just call here because we are the big stack. If we get 3-bet, we don't mind playing for a big pot. So I think this is the very rare instance where I'm going to call on the button with a great hand because I want this player to put himself at risk. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And plus, if we call here, we incentivize these bigger stacks to squeeze, which of course we love. So yeah, this looks like a call.
This is definitely a spot where we want to slow play by calling. And the reason is because if we 3-bet, the opponent's going to fold out all of their junk, and whatever they have does not have a lot of equity against kings. Now, we may get outdrawn sometimes by calling. Obviously, an ace on the flop would be pretty bad. But this is a situation where we don't necessarily want to be 3-betting against under the gun because it kind of forces them to play well, right? And we don't want them to play well. We want them to mess up. And an easy way to let them mess up is by sticking around and calling with hands that flop very, very well. If you actually look at our GTO pre-flop charts, make sure you check those out. If you're a Poker Coaching Premium member, you have full access to those.
Those were the charts I was using to range people.
If you're not, you have access to a few spots, but this is a spot where 20 big blinds deep, if you take a look at this, it shows that you should call with kings virtually every time. You also call with aces and even queens sometimes. And that's because we have our opponent in pretty bad shape. Also, calling with hands like kings and aces allows you to call a little bit wider with stuff like king 9 suited, queen 9 suited, 10-8 suited, 7-6 suited sometimes, right? So as you protect your calling range a little bit more, you actually get to call with a slightly wider range, which will let you play more hands more profitably, compared to if you only 3-bet or fold. If you only 3-bet or fold here, you just can't play the weaker portions of that range profitably. So anyway, I like a call here a lot. Flop comes ace, ace, king. We get the super nuts. Close enough to super nuts. And now the opponent checks. Should we check, bet 1,600, bet 3,200, or bet 4,800?
I got no reason to bet here. Like, if our opponent has an ace, we want him to feel good about it, so I'm just checking.
This is a situation where I think we want to slow play. Normally, I'm not really looking to slow play, but if you think about what the opponent's likely to have on this board, they either have an ace that's going to pay us off no matter what, right? We don't care about getting money in against an ace because the pot's already adequately big that if we make a turn plus river bet, we can stack our opponent. If they have a king, which is unlikely, we can still probably just bet turn and river. And then if they have an underpair, like queens, jacks, tens, nines, whatever, they're going to probably call a flop bet but then fold to a turn and or river bet. And I think the better play is to just call, hopefully let them either catch up to a worse full house, which is not going to happen all that often, but it may, and also allow them to perhaps overvalue those hands. Maybe they think if it goes check, check, we don't have a lot of ace-x. So I think this is a spot where we have a very, very easy check. If we are going to bet, we definitely want to bet on the small side, like 1,600, because that will allow the opponent to stick around pretty easily with hands like pocket nines or maybe even like queen jack, right? So in this scenario, when you're not concerned about being outdrawn and the stacks are relatively shallow compared to the pot, the right play is to pretty much always check with your nut hands. If I did have an ace, though, I would probably at least consider betting, because an ace is a little bit more susceptible to being outdrawn. Like, say the opponent does have queens and a queen comes, and I lose, right? Whereas here, if a queen comes, I win. I do realize if we are against an ace here, we will get outdrawn every once in a while, but the odds of that are very, very low. Like, say the opponent has ace-5 suited or something. You know, if they get a 5, we lose, but the odds of that happening is very low. So let it go check, check. Turns a 5. Oh boy, there it is, ace-5 suited, huh? And now the opponent bets small, 40% pot. Should we fold, call, raise to 5,000, or go all in?
So, because this player is so short, it's kind of brutal, because if they have an ace here, they just want to get the chips in, right? But if they're bluffing, we want them to continue bluffing. And if they're drawing at like a heart draw or a spade draw, we want them to hit their hands. So as silly as it sounds, I think we just want to call here. Yeah. I mean, the pot will be small. It'll only be 8,800. He'll have 10,000 left, but that's close. He may just jam it all on a bluff. If he makes his hand, he'll definitely pay us when he bets and we raise the river. So I think I like calling again. It's weird. It's very weird.
This is a spot where we, again, just want to call. I wish the opponent bet bigger on the turn, because that would have set up a less than pot river bet for either of us. When he bets this size, he'll have to like overbet the river if he wants to go all in, which is kind of annoying. But again, I don't think any of that really matters. Right here, I just want to keep my opponent in with all the hands that are drawing thin to dead. Like if he has a flush draw, right, I really want to keep him in. If he has a king or pocket queens, I really want to keep him in. And raising will make a lot of those hands.
Whoa. What happened there?
Here we have pocket kings and a $5,000
Well, it just restarted for no
tournament.
reason.
That's good.
All right, well, we had a call.
This is
A check
this
and a call.
This is a spot where we, again, just want to call. I wish the opponent bet bigger on the turn because that would have set up a...
Browser encountered a problem. Whoa. Something wrong with my browser here. Microsoft Edge fucking up. Alright. Weird. Let's try one more time. Alright, well there's mine. Okay.
We have
Call. Check. Call.
This is a spot where we, again, just want to call. I wish the opponent bet bigger on the turn because that would have set up a less than pot river bet for either of us. When he bets this size, he'll have to like overbet the river if he wants to go all in, which is kind of annoying. But again, I don't think any of that really matters. Right here, I just want to keep my opponent in with all the hands that are drawing thin to dead. Like if he has a flush draw, right, I really want to keep him in. If he has a king or pocket queens, I really want to keep him in. And raising will make a lot of those hands fold. So this is a spot where I think a lot of people screw up by going all in. But there's really no reason to go all in if you think about it, right? Like, why would we possibly go all in? I mean, I guess you could say, I think the guy has an ace and he's not going to pay me if a heart or a spade comes. But, I mean, I can tell you, the guy doesn't have any chips. If this guy is sitting here with an ace, even a bad one, like ace 2, he's not folding. People don't fold an ace, even on a bad river. So this is a spot where we just want to call and we want to keep him in to the best of our ability. So we do call, river's at 3, so ace 5 and ace 3 get there. And now he bets a weird amount, half his stack, 5/9 of the pot. Should we fold, call, or go all in?
You can make an argument saying that his bet's so weird that he's got a full house, but again, I think the odds are so against it. We just go all in, and he's not going to fold ace 10, ace jack. Even hands that should fold, it may look like a bluff to him with busted draws, so I think we just go all in.
This is an easy all in. And the reason is because we lose to basically nothing. I mean, we lose to ace king, which we block really hard, right? How many ace kings are available? There's 1 king left and 2 aces left. 2 times 1 is 2. So 2 combinations of ace king. We lose to ace 5 suited. There's clubs and diamonds, so there's 2 of those, so that's 4 combinations. And we lose to ace 3 suited, and there's 1 of those, only clubs, right? So there's 5 combinations of hands that we lose to. How many hands do we beat? Well, ace queen, there's 2 times 4 is 8. There's 8 ace queens right there, which are not going to fold to a jam for 5,000 chips. There's 8 ace jack.
Fun little thing he's doing there to figure out combinatrix, if you don't know this. He says ace queen, there's 8 combinations, because there are 4 queens that we don't see, and there's 2 aces that we don't see. You multiply 2 times 4, you get 8. There's 8 combinations of ace queen in the deck that we have no idea where they are. That's how he gets to 8 combos. That's how many times he has that. That's a little combinatrix thing. What cards don't you see that you're worried about? Multiply them by each other, you get number of combinations of that specific hand.
Jacks, that's probably not going to fold. There's at least 2 ace 10 suited, right? So you see there's just 5 nut hands we lose to and a bunch of hands that are very strong that will call off against a raise. Obviously, when the opponent has a busted draw, it doesn't matter. He's going to fold. But in this scenario, you have to ask, are there a lot of hands that can conceivably call a river raise in this scenario and that I beat? And there are. And also, there's very few combinations of hands that I actually lose to. I guess I could have pocket aces too, right? So 6 combinations of hands that I lose to. 6 I lose to. And realistically, if he only has ace queen and ace jack, there's 16 of those. So this is just a no-brainer raise. If we did this math, looking at these combinations, and it was the opposite, like say there's 16 hands I lose to and 5 I beat, or 6 I beat, then I would call, right? In this scenario, to justify value raising, you need there to be more than 50% of hands that the opponent will bet and then call off with that I beat than hands that will bet and call off that I lose to, right? So essentially, I want to make sure that there are more hands that I beat that will bet and call off in my opponent's range compared to hands that will bet and then call off that I lose to. And in this scenario, it's 6 to 16 or something like that, so it's a no-brainer raise. We do raise, and again, whenever we do get called, I want to make it clear, sometimes here we lose. But that's okay, because we know 6 out of 22 times we win, 6 out of 22 times we lose, 16 out of 22 times we win. and opponent had the ace jack this time.
It's an interesting thing, and that's what filtered into this hand for me. I'm going to go back to it. Oh, I closed Poker Tracker. I'm going to bring it up because I did talk about the combinatrix at the time, but it's the how often, you know, I'm supposed to call that one 85% of the time. So in this hand specifically, show the marked hands. In this one, that's a big factor here because we're going to this river and facing this bet. What combinations do this that we lose to? So ace jack is in the range for sure because of this betting strategy, but he did bet it weirdly on the flop, which would make sense with ace jack. Pocket tens, I suppose, but I think pocket tens either checks the flop or bets bigger than that flop, so I kind of discounted it. Pocket kings I discounted because I think that checks the flop a great majority of the time. So there's only 3 kings left in the deck, so of those combinations there's only whatchamacallit, 3 combinations of pocket kings, or sorry, 6 combinations of pocket kings, 6 combinations of pocket tens. Ace jack only has 16 combinations, so that's 6, 12, 28 combinations. What hands can do this reasonably on the bluff? Well, there's 16 combinations, or there's 12 combinations of ace king. There's 12 combinations of jack or king jack. There's just way more. It was like, let me think. There's like 36 combinations of hands that we beat and like 16 that we don't, which 16 is a high number that we don't, but they're not really realistic with this. So again, that filtered back to why I made the call in there. So just a good thing to keep in mind, the combinatrix of a hand. Man, my fucking media player is just crashing left and right. I'm going to go ahead and take it as a sign to go ahead and end the stream. I'll pass you guys off to somebody. I forget who's here. Wow, it is not responding at all. I need an update. But yeah, it was a good day. I'm going to go head out to the DMV and try to deal with that fucking nonsense. And maybe it's a play day today. Probably not. Usually I edit it a lot on Mondays and Tuesdays. So maybe we'll play, maybe we won't. Maybe just some cash games later tonight, about 8 or 9 o'clock my time probably. But if not, I'll see you guys at noon tomorrow for the next Wake Up With Me. We'll do some more hand quizzes. That'll be fun. And yeah, so you guys have a great day. My Twitch crashed, so I don't know who to host. So I'm just going to go ahead and end the stream. Find somebody else to watch, have some fun, play some poker, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, if not tonight.